But here's what most people don't realize. If you're over 50 and you've noticed you're not ejaculating the way you used to, you may be waking up tired, carrying a strange pressure in your body, wondering quietly if something is wrong with you, or if this is just what aging feels like. I'm a board-certified urologist, and I've helped thousands of men through this exact concern with clarity and calm. There's a surprising reason this happens, and doing nothing can quietly make it worse. Stay with me, and before we begin, tell me where you're watching from, and like and subscribe so you don't miss guidance made for men like you. But here's what most people don't realize. When ejaculation changes as you get older, it's rarely a sudden failure, and it's almost never your body giving up on you. What usually happens is quieter than that, gradual, subtle. One day you notice it takes longer, another day there's less volume, another time nothing happens at all. And because no one ever prepared you for this, your mind jumps to the worst conclusion. Something must be wrong with me, or maybe this is just aging and I'm supposed to accept it. I want to slow this moment down for you because both of those assumptions miss what's really happening inside your body. In my clinic, I see men every week who are relieved just to hear this said out loud. Ejaculation often changes with age, and that change has real, understandable reasons behind it. This isn't about weakness, it isn't about masculinity fading, it's about biology shifting over time, sometimes gently, sometimes unevenly. The problem is that most men were never taught what those shifts look like, so when they happen they feel personal, they feel like a loss of control, and that emotional weight can be heavier than the physical change itself. One of the biggest drivers is hormones. Testosterone doesn't usually fall off a cliff, but it does slowly decline, and even small changes can affect how signals travel from your brain to your pelvis. At the same time, prolactin levels can rise, estrogen balance can shift, and the timing of those signals can become less precise. Ejaculation isn't just a mechanical event, it's a carefully coordinated conversation between your brain, your nerves, your muscles, and your prostate. When the hormonal rhythm changes, that conversation can get quieter or delayed. The important thing to understand is that this doesn't mean the system is broken. It means it's responding to new conditions. Then there's the prostate. As men age, the prostate almost always enlarges to some degree. This isn't a disease by itself, it's a normal biological process, but as the prostate changes size and texture, it can affect how semen is propelled and how sensations are perceived. Nerve signaling around the prostate can become less efficient, not because the nerves are gone, but because they're being compressed, stretched, or redirected. Many men tell me, "Doctor, it feels like my body starts something but doesn't finish it." That description is incredibly accurate. The intention is there. The follow-through is altered. Medications add another layer, and this is where a lot of men get blindsided. Blood pressure medications, antidepressants, prostate drugs, even medications for sleep can interfere with ejaculation, not because they're harming you, but because they change blood flow, nerve sensitivity, or muscle contraction. I've had countless conversations where a man thought his body had failed him, only to discover that a prescription he started years earlier was quietly influencing this part of his health. No one warned him, and he never thought to ask. And then there's the part men almost never bring up unless I ask directly, the psychological side. Stress doesn't stop affecting you just because you're older. In fact, it often deepens. Responsibilities shift, identity changes, retirement, health scares, loss of friends, changes in intimacy. All of these can sit quietly in your nervous system. Performance anxiety doesn't disappear with age. It often becomes more subtle. You may not consciously feel anxious, but your body remembers past disappointments, past failures, past moments where things didn't work the way you expected. That memory alone can interrupt the process. What makes this harder is that men don't talk about it, not with friends, not with family, often not even with doctors. There's a quiet embarrassment that settles in, a fear that asking the question somehow confirms the fear. I've had men sit in front of me, accomplished men, strong men, and lower their voice when they say, "I don't feel like myself anymore." What they're really saying is that they're afraid this change defines them. It doesn't. Here's the actionable insight I want you to take with you from this part. Understanding why ejaculation changes is not about labeling yourself or resigning yourself to decline. It's about giving you a map. When you understand the cause, you regain agency. You stop guessing. You stop blaming yourself. And only then can you choose the right next step instead of reacting out of fear or frustration. Because here's the part most men never hear, and it may surprise you. What you do next matters far more than what's already changed. But here's what most people don't realize. When ejaculation quietly fades from your life, the absence itself can start to shape your body in ways you don't immediately feel. There's rarely a sharp pain or a dramatic warning sign. Instead, things shift slowly beneath the surface, which is why so many men assume there's no harm in ignoring it. If nothing hurts, it must be fine. But the male reproductive system wasn't designed for long-term stagnation, and when normal release patterns disappear, the effects tend to show up in indirect, confusing ways. One of the first places this shows up is the prostate. The prostate is not just a passive gland. It's an active organ that relies on regular circulation and movement. When ejaculation becomes infrequent or stops altogether, fluid can accumulate, leading to congestion. Over time, this congestion can contribute to inflammation, pressure, or a dull discomfort that's hard to describe and even harder to connect to its cause. Many men tell me they feel heavy or tight in the pelvis, but they never think to associate that sensation with ejaculation patterns. They assume it's aging or posture or something they did at the gym years ago. Then there's the pelvic floor. This group of muscles plays a crucial role in ejaculation, bladder control, and overall pelvic stability. When ejaculation stops, these muscles often lose their natural rhythm. Some become too tight, others too weak, and many men develop subtle dysfunction without realizing it. This can lead to urinary changes, discomfort while sitting, or a feeling that something just isn't coordinated anymore. Again, nothing dramatic, just enough to be annoying, distracting, and quietly draining. What surprises most men is how this affects the brain. Orgasm and ejaculation are not just physical events. They trigger a cascade of neurochemicals that influence mood, motivation, and stress regulation. Dopamine, oxytocin, and prolactin all play a role in creating a sense of satisfaction and calm. When that cycle is disrupted, some men notice that pleasure feels muted, motivation dips, or irritability creeps in for no obvious reason. They may feel less driven, less engaged, or emotionally flat, and they rarely connect those changes to what's happening in their body. Over time, this can spill into your emotional life. Men who experience changes in ejaculation often begin to withdraw without realizing it. Intimacy feels complicated, so it's avoided. Conversations feel heavier, so they're shortened. Confidence takes a quiet hit, and with it, motivation. I've had patients tell me they didn't feel depressed, just less themselves. That's an important distinction. This isn't about sadness as much as it's about vitality fading at the edges. I want to be very clear about something here. This is not just about sex, it's about circulation, signaling, and vitality. Ejaculation acts like a biological reset for the male body. It keeps fluids moving, nerves responsive, and systems communicating with each other. When that reset doesn't happen, the body adapts, but not always in ways that serve you long term. The issue isn't that something terrible will happen overnight. The issue is that the longer the system stays off rhythm, the harder it can be to bring it back. This is where masculine health often gets misunderstood. Men are taught to tolerate, to push through, to ignore subtle signals until something forces attention. But recovery works best when awareness comes early. Ignoring changes doesn't make them disappear. It gives them time to entrench. I've seen men regain function and comfort quickly when they address this early, and I've seen others struggle longer than necessary because they waited, hoping it would resolve on its own. The actionable insight here is simple but powerful. Paying attention early preserves options. It keeps your nervous system flexible and your body responsive. Awareness is not weakness, it's strategy. And when you understand that, you're less likely to panic and more likely to act with intention. Now here's where most men make the wrong move. But here's what most people don't realize. When ejaculation stops or becomes unreliable, the instinctive reactions men have are often the very things that push their bodies further off balance. And I want to say this clearly without judgment, because I see this every week in my clinic. These responses don't come from weakness or ignorance. They come from confusion, from silence, and from a lifetime of being told you're supposed to handle these things on your own. One of the most common reactions is trying to force the system back online. Men turn to pornography more often, hoping stimulation will jumpstart something that feels stuck. At first, this can seem logical. More stimulation should create more response. But what often happens instead is desensitization. The brain begins to expect stronger and stronger signals, while the body is already struggling with slower nerve communication. The result is frustration, not restoration. Ejaculation becomes more elusive, and the gap between expectation and reality widens. This isn't because you're doing something immoral or wrong. It's because the nervous system doesn't respond well to pressure. Closely tied to this is the urge to force performance. Men push through fatigue, ignore discomfort, and tell themselves to just make it work. But ejaculation isn't something you can muscle into happening. It's a reflex that depends on timing, relaxation, and coordination. When effort turns into tension, the pelvic floor tightens. Breathing becomes shallow, and the very muscles needed for release become less cooperative. I've had men describe feeling like they're chasing something that keeps slipping away. That chase itself becomes the obstacle. Another common misstep is jumping straight to supplements or quick fixes without understanding the root cause. A friend mentions a pill, an advertisement promises fast results, and suddenly your medicine cabinet fills with powders and capsules. Some supplements can be helpful in the right context, but taken blindly, they often do little more than create false hope. Worse, they can distract you from addressing hormonal imbalances, medication effects, or pelvic issues that actually need attention. I often tell patients that stacking supplements without a plan is like adjusting the thermostat without checking if the furnace is working. Then there's avoidance. This one is quieter and in many ways more painful. Some men stop engaging in intimacy altogether, not because they don't want connection, but because they don't want to face disappointment, embarrassment, or the fear of letting someone down. So they pull back. They become more reserved, more distant, telling themselves it's easier this way. Over time, that distance can harden into habit, and intimacy starts to feel foreign. The body learns what you repeatedly avoid. Perhaps the most damaging response of all is resignation, the belief that this is just aging and there's nothing to be done. I hear this often, usually spoken with a shrug and a forced acceptance that doesn't quite sound convincing. Aging does bring change, but giving up is not the same as adapting. When men stop believing improvement is possible, they stop sending their bodies the signals needed for recovery. The nervous system responds to expectation more than most people realize. Throughout all of this, I want you to hear my tone clearly. This is not a lecture, it's a course correction. None of these responses make you broken or foolish, they make you human. But they also explain why so many men stay stuck longer than they need to. The goal here is not to pressure your body into performing on command. The goal is restoration, restoring communication, restoring comfort, restoring confidence. The actionable insight is this: when something changes in your body, the solution is rarely more force. It's better understanding, better timing, and better support. When you remove pressure, the system often begins to respond again in ways that feel natural instead of forced. So what should you do instead? This is the most important part. But here's what most people don't realize. When ejaculation changes, the most powerful thing you can do is not something extreme or dramatic. It's taking calm, deliberate steps that restore communication inside your body. This is where control and confidence begin to return, not through pressure, but through clarity. I want to walk you through what I guide my own patients to do first, because these steps create a foundation that everything else builds on. The first priority is a proper medical evaluation, and I say that not to alarm you, but to ground you. Understanding what's happening with your prostate, your hormone levels, and your medications removes guesswork. A simple review can reveal whether prostate enlargement is contributing to congestion, whether testosterone has shifted enough to affect signaling, or whether a medication you've been taking for years is quietly influencing ejaculation. When men finally get this information, I often see their shoulders drop. The fear eases because the unknown becomes known. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios and start working with facts. Next comes a conversation about ejaculation frequency, and I want to be careful with how this is framed. This is not about hitting a target or following a rigid rule. It's about restoring rhythm. The male body responds well to gentle consistency. Too little activity can allow stagnation, while too much pressure can create tension. What matters is that ejaculation, whether through intimacy or self-stimulation, is approached as a supportive biological process, not a performance test. When men shift that mindset, the body often follows. One area that's almost always overlooked is the pelvic floor. Many men assume they need to strengthen these muscles, but in cases where ejaculation has become difficult, the issue is often the opposite. Chronic tension. Sitting for long hours, stress, and unconscious clenching can keep the pelvic floor too tight. Learning how to relax these muscles through breathing, posture, and gentle awareness can dramatically improve coordination. I've seen men regain sensation and control simply by releasing tension they didn't know they were carrying. Sleep and stress deserve just as much attention. Poor sleep disrupts hormone balance and nerve recovery. Chronic stress keeps the nervous system in a state of vigilance, which is the opposite of what ejaculation requires. Circulation also plays a role here. Movement, light activity, and time away from constant sitting help blood flow reach the pelvic region. These aren't dramatic interventions, but they're powerful when done consistently. The body heals in environments that feel safe and supported. Perhaps the most important shift is how you frame intimacy. When intimacy is treated as a performance, the body braces. When it's treated as a form of health, connection, and circulation, the body relaxes. I often tell men that intimacy is not an exam you pass or fail. It's a conversation with your body. When you listen instead of demand, the response changes. The actionable insight I want you to remember is this. Small, consistent steps taken with patience reverse more than most men expect. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to send your body clear, calm signals that it's safe to function again. And if you're thinking, it's too late for me, listen carefully. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you start understanding what's happening in your body is often the same moment hope quietly returns. I've seen men walk into my office carrying years of frustration, convinced that what they've lost is gone for good. They sit down carefully, speak cautiously, and admit fears they've never said out loud. And I've also seen those same men walk out lighter, steadier, not because everything changed overnight, but because they finally understood that their bodies were still capable of responding. Aging is not decline, it's adaptation. Your body is constantly adjusting to new conditions, new rhythms, new demands. When sexual health changes, it's not a verdict on your worth or your vitality. It's feedback. Sexual function is deeply connected to sleep, stress, circulation, hormones, and emotional well-being. When one area shifts, others follow. That's why focusing on this issue often improves far more than intimacy alone. Men tell me they feel clearer, calmer, more grounded, as if their system as a whole has come back online. I want to normalize the fear without feeding it. It's completely human to worry that it's too late, that you've missed your window, that your best years are behind you. I hear that concern from men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and yet I've watched recovery happen well beyond the age most people assume is possible, not through miracle cures, but through understanding, consistency, and self-respect. The body doesn't keep a calendar the way the mind does. It responds to signals, not birthdays. You are not broken. Nothing about what you're experiencing means you failed or lost something essential. Your body is doing what bodies do. It's responding to the signals it's been given. And the powerful truth is that signals can change. When stress lowers, sleep improves, tension releases, and understanding replaces fear, the nervous system often reopens pathways that felt closed. This is not wishful thinking. It's physiology guided with patience. I've seen men come in discouraged and leave hopeful because hope is not blind optimism. It's informed confidence. It's knowing that there are steps you can take and that you don't have to navigate this alone. This channel exists to guide, not judge, to give you clear information without shame and encouragement, without pressure. You are part of a community of men who care about their health, their dignity, and their future, and that's where we go next. But here's what most people don't realize. The most overlooked solution was never a pill, a trick, or forcing your body to behave the way it used to. It was awareness paired with calm, deliberate action. Silence keeps men stuck. Understanding moves them forward. And the moment you stop carrying this quietly and start giving your body the right signals, everything begins to change direction. If this video helped you see your health differently, I invite you to subscribe and join a community of men who take their health seriously, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. This channel is built for men who want their confidence back, their energy back, their deep restorative sleep back, men who want clarity instead of confusion, and dignity instead of quiet frustration. Sexual health is not a vanity issue. It's a reflection of how well your entire system is being supported. You deserve to feel strong in your body. You deserve to wake up with purpose, not uncertainty. And you deserve guidance that speaks to you like a man, not a statistic. That was the open question at the beginning, the one many of you felt but couldn't name. Is something wrong with me, or is this just aging? Now you know the answer. Your body is responding to signals, and signals can be changed. Stay connected, stay informed, take care of your health, because you are worth it.